A very good evening to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us on this Monday edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toivan Jobela, your host for tonight. Let's have a look at some of the headlines in tomorrow's Namibian Sun. Tonight on the show, we are joined by Sinvula Mudabeti. He is the leader of the Namibia Lives Matter movement that has been involved very much into the well-being of Namibian people that have become a target of members of the Botswana Defence Force. Mr. Mudabeti is joining us from Kasane, Botswana, where a hearing currently is taking place regarding the killing of 3 brothers and their cousin at the hands of the same military men from Botswana. To give us an insight of what is happening there, Mr. Mudabeti, thank you very much for making time and be back on the show.
Yes, thank you, my brother, and you're welcome. Good evening to the viewers.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful, Mr. Mudabeti. Give us a sense of what has been happening in Botswana last week in Kasane.
Yeah, last week the inquest started on Monday, on the 15th of November, initially scheduled to run until the 26th, which is this Friday. So up until last week Friday, we had 24 witnesses who came and testified. Chief among those was the medical doctor, forensic pathologist from Botswana, who came and revealed the autopsy of the 3 Nchindo brothers and their cousin. And out of his evidence, we saw that there were 19 bullets in total that he found on the bodies of these 4 men. And 3 of the men received each 5 bullets on his body, and 1 of them received 4 bullets. So that gives 19 total number of bullets on their bodies, as revealed in the autopsy report. The second revelation from the doctor in his autopsy report is that there was no entry gunshot wound on any of the bodies from their backs. Most of the bullets got onto the bodies either through the left-hand side of the body or the right-hand side of the body. And the rest entry gunshot wounds were in front. Now, that's a version that contradicts what BDF, the Botswana Defence Force, said before the inquest and during the inquest. The Botswana Defence Force version is that their soldiers were pursuing Namibians in 2 canoes, and that the instruction of the platoon commander to have the Namibians stop, our brothers were accused of firing at the Botswana Defence Force, and that Botswana Defence Force returned fire. Now, if you return fire to people who you are pursuing, it means the entry of the bullets, the gunshot wounds, should be at the back. But there is no one who has an entry gunshot from the back, which means in our analysis, the Botswana Defence Force has fabricated a story, an afterthought, which has not stood the test of evidence as given by the autopsy report. The second thing under last week that shows a very big contradiction the Botswana Defence Force claimed that when they had returned fire and killed these men, that they did not see these men actually. They only aimed at the sound, the direction from which they heard the sound. Now, if you are shooting people that, a person or people that you have not seen randomly, it would mean there will be a volley of bullets all over the body. But the doctor's report, the autopsy report, shows that the bullets were not as random as BDF wanted us to believe, because you get bullets that would go, below somebody's heart. One is on the toe, one is on the hip. So that was another contradiction that shows that Botswana Defence Force just manufactured an explanation to say they returned fire. And the proof shows that it was not a type of returning fire. It's as if it was a systematic thing that was done. The third issue also that came out was that the Botswana Defence Force had carried 815 bullets for this very mission, and they discharged 32 bullets. Again, the manner in which they discharged the 32 bullets, which differs from the 19 bullets that came from the doctor. Of course, they might claim that they missed the bodies with, the remaining number of bullets. But what has come out clearly also is that the soldiers, the 4 soldiers that killed our brothers, claimed that they were not shooting their rifles using the automatic mode, which should have allowed so many bullets to be released at a certain time. But that they were using the semi-automatic mode that is quite slow. Now, in the BDF testimony, they claim that it only took below 6 seconds to have these men motionless. But this doesn't agree with common practices elsewhere. When you are returning fire, who returns fire in a semi-automatic version? And how many bullets does one shoot when you are using semi-automatic? So that was another contradiction that came. Another one that came out clearly is that, BDF claims that when they were shooting these men were carrying a weapon, and that the weapon fell in the water. The canoes, according to BDF, were very close to the riverbank, such that one of the bodies of the shot fishermen was half in the water and half on the riverbank. Also, evidence came out that the water in that area is quite shallow. It is very strange that the canoes were found, the bodies were retrieved, but the weapons, alleged weapons in shallow water, were not found. So scuba divers from Botswana Defence Force came and testified that they did not find the weapons. Namibian police divers joined the scuba BDF, with metal detectors. They never found the gun. So I can confirm that Botswana just fabricated the story to make people believe that the fishermen had carried a gun. This gun could not be found. Yet the wooden pedals that our brothers were using to ferry their canoe were found, according to their testimony, right there in the water. So you can see that the chief piece of evidence which they thought they would use against these innocent men, the guns, were never found. The second one was their evasion. They claimed that they were shooting people who were fleeing, but the autopsy shows that these men were shot from the front and from the sides. The third one, they are quite inconsistent in their version. Some are saying there were 2 boats that night. In fact, all of them claim there were 2 boats. But some are saying there was a third boat that came at night, which when we cross-examined the other Botswana Defence Force shooters, they did not mention any of these boats. So in a nutshell, that is what we saw last week, the major contradiction in the autopsy report. The rest of the details, Botswana had claimed before we came here that they received intelligence information from a Namibian, and that they were going to reveal the name of that person. Now, things have changed here. They are now saying in court that it's a Botswana number that called them. A person was speaking Setswana, but apparently the person hung the phone up when they wanted to ask details of who he is and what he has seen. So their version of saying they had a call of a person telling them that there were 2 canoes seen crossing the Chobe River towards Sidudu Kasikili Island with 4 men, 2 in each canoe, with guns, is actually a fabrication of their wildest imagination. Because we have put these questions in court to them. Can we please get that person to come and testify? We can't, they say they can't get the person. Apparently they can't, the number doesn't exist anymore. But in Botswana, you are not allowed to buy a Botswana number without an ID. So we have asked them, it took you 9 months. Go to the mobile operators, take the number there, get the records of this person. So they have not done that. So I can tell you, Toivo, and the Namibian nation and all those watching, Botswana had fabricated a story that suited their narrative, but this narrative has not stood the test of evidence in this inquest. So that in a nutshell would be a summary of what was covered last week.
Wonderful. Just Mr. Mudabeti, again on the, so is it an inquest or is it a trial of some sort? Is there anyone that is a respondent in this case yet, or these are preliminary processes before a decision can be taken whether to actually go into a full court case?
Yeah, it's an inquest. You see, according to the laws of Botswana, the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is equivalent to our Prosecutor General in Namibia, apparently he did not get sufficient evidence in the joint investigation report, in the autopsy report, to charge the 4 shooters, the 4 BDF shooters, and bring them in the High Court for murder and hold them accountable for the death of this man. So they opted for an inquest, which means a magistrate calls witnesses and goes through the evidence before court so that the magistrate can make a determination as to whether the soldiers can be held criminally liable for the death of those men. So once the magistrate makes that determination, I believe it goes back to the Director of Public Prosecutions. If he agrees with that determination, then he formulates charges, determine whether the men will be charged in the High Court if it's murder, or if it's homicide and any other lesser offense, then it goes to the High Court for trial. So it's just an inquest, which is a preliminary process that determines whether there was anyone who could be held liable for the death of these men.
Yeah. In a democratic country like Botswana and of course Namibia and many other democracies in the world, the concept of democracy itself hinges on on the strength of the institutions. In other words, if you have an independent judiciary and other functioning organs of state, you can then say to a great extent that your democracy is functional. In this particular case, what is your assessment of the impartiality of the process, especially when that institution belongs to a country that is accused of having transgressed against a neighbor?
Yeah, no, thank you, Toivo. I think Botswana as democracy will not pass the test of what they have always said to the world, that they are the shining example of what democracy looks like in Africa. Number one, we have seen from this issue that their institutions are not free and independent of political influence and dominance. Look, it took them 9 months to decide on an inquest, which is very strange, you understand? For me, that shows that there was political undue influence on the judiciary and pressure. We had to put public pressure through the movement and through like-minded Africans elsewhere to say Namibia needs, to fight for the rights of its own. So that for me shows that they don't have a democratic process that can stand the true test of what democracy means. The second issue is, now that they decided to do an inquest, that also shows that the way they look at this trial, for them, it's a trial where BDF, in their eyes, acted within the laws of the land. But you and me know that BDF should be assessed by the Botswana police, and the Botswana police investigation should be assessed by the prosecution team. But what we see in the inquest is evidence in a manner in which you can not tell anymore whether is this the prosecution team or the defense counsel. Also, on Saturday, our witnesses were told to return to Namibia, not by the prosecutor, not by the magistrate, but by the Botswana police. So you can see that there is no separation of powers. And the witnesses had to refuse and say, we cannot go back to Namibia by a police officer's command. We were never called by Botswana police. We were subpoenaed by the Director of Public Prosecutions. And we were subpoenaed to be here for 2 weeks. And if things have changed, that should be communicated to us. That is when the head of police in Kasane considered that he was not in a position to explain why they should go back, other than just being told that they should go back. So that's another example that I have seen here, that the police are overstepping their boundaries without qualms. I've also noticed that the BDF is untouchable here. The witness who testified today is a crime scene investigator. And the questions put to him when he brought exhibits of the canoes, of the alleged elephant tusks, of the cell phones of the slain men, he couldn't explain why the guns that BDF used were never taken by the police, were never assessed, so that people can verify whether the claim that BDF made, is genuine. So he did say that those questions should be directed to the BDF. Now, that's very embarrassing. You're a police officer who was sent on a scene of crime to investigate a crime. But it's as if he was only sent to investigate the death of the Namibians and not the killers. He actually does not even know who the killers were. And he did testify that in court. So, my brother and the Namibian nation and all those watching, there is no functioning democracy in this country. They have cosmetic and superficial processes that they use to support their, shoot to kill policy, which they keep denying is not there.
Indeed. Mr. Mudabeti, we go for a quick break and then I return to you with more questions.
All right, thank you.
Season 1 of the Hunters Chill session is coming to a close. To celebrate Hunters and the Namibian Sun, we'll be having an exclusive invite-only event at Access Lounge on the 23rd of November. You can be part of this. Stand a chance to win exclusive double tickets for you and a friend to attend the Hunters Chill finale. WhatsApp a picture of you and your friend chilling with your favorite Hunters to 084 000 9820. Hunters, refreshes like nothing on earth. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag #paybackthemoney.
We continue our conversation with Sinvula Mudabeti, who is chairperson of the Namibian Lives Matter movement. Now, Mr. Mudabeti, in terms of representation, of course, you spoke about witnesses from Namibia, and you yourself as a Namibian movement are also present there. Who else from Namibia is present there, notably? Maybe government officials, anyone?
Yeah, I really want to commend the work of the governor of the Zambezi region, Honorable Lawrence Sampofu. He has been here since Monday. In fact, he arrived before Monday, and he has sat in every session of the inquest. The entire week, last week, this week he's still here. He's also accompanied by the chairperson of the Zambezi Regional Council, Honorable Matengus Mushi. Then we have two officials from the embassy. Our first secretary is present, and our military attaché is present. We also have a public prosecutor, control public prosecutor in the Zambian, Boniface Konga, who arrived on Wednesday to join the team so that he can take care of the legal aspects. So that's the government team that is present here with us. Then the Nchindo brothers are represented by there are two of their big elder brothers who are here, and then there are two sisters. Then we also have, what I would call Botswana citizens who have family in Namibia across the river. You know, this area is a Chobe area where you get Subias, who live across even years. So we have seen their presence and solidarity in court. So basically, that's the composition of the people that you find in court.
Indeed. This inquest, Sinvula, is it a turning point somehow? I know that there are loose ends that you mentioned there to say the process is not entirely the way you would have wanted it to be, and that is half-hearted given the amount of time it has taken for the authorities in Botswana to eventually start acting. But is it a turning point of some sort that somehow there will be action taken going forward, or that will depend majorly on how this particular case ends?
Yeah, I think depending on the determination magistrate makes, that might be the turning point, because we don't want to preempt what she will say. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't want to preempt. All right. I don't want to preempt the determination that will be made by the magistrate, but I can note the following. Look, there was an inquest, if my memory serves me well, in 2015, and I think this is the second inquest. And this inquest has moved miles, mileage compared to the first one. Number one, the level of government representation that is here today is testimony that our government is starting to take this matter serious. The previous inquest, there were two Namibians that were shot by BDF. The autopsy report in that inquest had revealed that these men were shot at the backs of their heads. In other words, they were fleeing. But even in that inquest, BDF had claimed that these men had confronted them, and that is why they fired at them. Now, you can see Botswana's version in that inquest is a similar version in this inquest. In that inquest, Botswana, produced elephant tusks. They planted elephant tusks on the scene. But the guns that were found on the Namibians, one was a .22 rifle and another one was a shotgun. And the ballistic expert in that inquest ruled out the possibility that these guns cannot kill an elephant. But even in the presence of such evidence, the magistrate then ruled in favor of BDF. So I'm saying it's a bit different now because the level of observation that we are putting as a movement, and that a lot of Namibians this time are asking so many questions. Also in the previous inquest, information was highly controlled. But the level at which information is now in the public domain in this inquest, not just in Namibia and Botswana, but even elsewhere, internationally, people are watching and following this closely. So I think in that regard, this inquest stands to be one that might put Botswana in pressure to start respecting international laws on how you engage those you claim to have found in your territory.
Indeed. Then maybe in closing, Mr. Mudabeti, what is that outcome that your movement and indeed Namibian people who are following this case with keen interest and wanting to see some sort of justice in this case, if it were up to you, what is the outcome that you want to see, a conclusive outcome?
Yeah, for me, first of all, I would want the system of Botswana to stand the test of what they claim to be democratic. And what do I mean? I want the magistrate to show that she has looked at the evidence without defending the BDF that has always been defended by the judiciary here. I would have wanted the police to also show impartiality as being the custodians of crime investigation, but they have not shown that. What the Botswana police has shown here is that they are an extension of the BDF. But other than that, I would really want to see justice served. And for me, for us as a movement, justice served means that the men who pulled the trigger should be arraigned before a high court for murder. That a process can, be held in a court in Botswana with Namibian hired lawyers who will test this preliminary evidence in a high court that should tell the world whether these men were guilty or not. Alternatively, it's time Botswana starts, to agree with what its neighbors are saying. There's never been a Namibian, who shot a Botswana citizen. There's never been a Botswana citizen who is in Namibia and has been mistreated, let alone by civilians. So justice for me means Botswana needs to know that they need to respect their neighbors. Botswana needs to know that their neighbors are watching. It's Botswana that has killed Zambians. It's Botswana that has killed Namibians. It's Botswana that has killed Zimbabweans. It is only South Africans they are scared to kill. Because if they kill watchers from South Africa, I tell you, hell will break loose. So for me, justice will be served when these criminals, trigger-happy members of BDF, are brought before a court in Botswana, where the Botswana police will stop doing what they are doing now, being an extension of the BDF, to be custodians of crime investigations in their country. If not, we will have no other option but to escalate this matter to the international world. That we would rather have a court independent of Namibia and Botswana, where witnesses should come and present their evidence, that the world may judge the same way we went to Kasikili. Let that way, if Botswana wants to continue bullying other nations, that the International Court of Justice, through its should find a way in which it becomes the independent body, and we will respect that judgment the same way we respected Kasikili. But do you know what? Botswana is likely not to do that. Even if they were a coast country, to tell them they are guilty, they would refuse, because Kasikili was given to them. But that judgment in Kasikili also highlights that the resources around Kasikili Island, where they killed these men, should be enjoyed by both nationals of Namibia and Botswana. But Botswana has violated that part of the judgment from 1999, and they continue doing it now. So we know Botswana has no respect for international rulings. And I cannot, say anything different now until that time that we see Botswana admitting that they are thirst for human blood, that they are a nation that protects animals above human life.
Indeed. Mr. Mudabeti, I know that I am in no position to make any pronouncements generally, but I can assure you that a lot of people share the same view as myself, that this is a positive step, and that we just hope that it's not fluke. It's a real genuine process meant to get to the bottom of this matter. So thank you very much for making time this evening, and please keep up the good work. We might talk to you again after the completion of this process.
Thank you very much, Toivo. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. That is Sinvula Mudabeti. He is leader of the Namibian Lives Matter movement, speaking to us from Kasane, Botswana, about the proceedings that are going on there about the killing of 3 Nchindo brothers and their Zambian cousin last year. Thank you for watching.